What former Attorney General Bill Barr has said. He's speaking out for the first time now about former President Trump's false claims that the 2020 election was stolen, despite all the investigation and the facts that prove otherwise. Bill Barr, who is President Trump's right-hand man, he told our chief Washington correspondent Jonathan Karl that he personally looked into Trump's allegations of fraud and found there was nothing there. Well, now Trump is unleashing on Barr, calling him a disappointment in every sense of the word. So Jonathan Karl has the full story for us.
Bill Barr doesn't mince words. In a series of exclusive interviews, he tells me he investigated Donald Trump's claims shortly after the election and found there was just nothing there, and it was all BS.
If I found something, I had no motive to suppress it. But my suspicion all the way along was that there was nothing there. It was all.
Barr told me he conducted his own informal inquiry into the major allegations Trump himself was making. He examined the evidence, he talked to the experts, he took them seriously, but it was all bunk. For example, he talked to cybersecurity experts at the Department of Homeland Security and the FBI about allegations that voting machines were rigged.
You can tell me all you want to about, this could have been hacked or, whatever. But it's a counting machine, and we save everything that was counted, so you just reconcile the two. There's a pile right there. How many ballots? 1,000.
Right.
Now let's see who they're for. There's been no discrepancy reported anywhere that's looked at that, and I'm still not aware of any discrepancy.
On December 1st, when Barr was still Attorney General, he publicly declared there was no evidence of widespread fraud, prompting Donald Trump to explode in anger during a meeting at the White House. Multiple sources who witnessed the president's reaction told me they had never seen him so angry. One said, quote, he had the eyes and mannerisms of a madman. How the expletive could you do this to me? Why did you say it? Trump demanded. Because it's true, Barr replied. You must hate Trump, the president responded. You must hate Trump.
Well, thanks to Jonathan Karl for that report. It's pretty clear, as you just heard from John's interview with Attorney General Bill Barr. The math is pretty simple, and the paper ballots back it up. So for more on the fallout from what President Trump says a betrayal of him by Bill Barr, let's bring in ABC News political director Rick Klein and former Department of Justice spokesperson, now ABC News political contributor Sarah Isgur-Flores. So, Sarah, welcome, and let me ask you about John's scoop here. What does it say about how Attorney General Barr and the Justice Department worked during the Trump administration and how the Trump administration and how the president looked at the Justice Department?
Well, let's back up to even when I was at the Department of Justice. If you remember at the time, there were those who said that despite how close Attorney General Sessions had been to President Trump during the election, that Attorney General Sessions should have known when he recused himself that that would poison the relationship, that it was his original sin. And I think what this proves is that no matter how close you are to President Trump, no matter how much of a loyal lieutenant you are, it doesn't matter. I mean, no one was closer. No one was more aggressive in defending the president's priorities than Bill Barr. And it took nothing for the president to turn against him. Bill Barr says something that is just factually true. He looked into it. He tried to take the president's side. There was nothing to back it up. And what does Donald Trump say to that? You must hate Donald Trump. And so I think what you get from this is maybe the best example we've had in all 4 years of the Trump presidency, perhaps, that it's not the facts, it's not the rule of law. For Donald Trump, it was always about Donald Trump.
So, Rick, Attorney General Barr was criticized often for his repeated interventions in matters of direct intervention to President Trump. Trump wanted, as Sarah says, the Justice Department to basically be his tool here. But now he's distancing himself with these comments, no question about it, from Trump's efforts. So is this him calling it as he sees it? Is he trying to get away from Trump and his claims to overturn the election? How do you read this politically for Barr and for the country?
It won't fly for everyone. Clearly, there are a lot of folks who will never believe any claims that Bill Barr had about independence. They'll point to episodes up to and including his efforts to influence the public consumption of the Mueller report by putting out word about it before the report even came out. And yes, he was fiercely loyal, as Sarah referenced. However, when it mattered, when it counted, and Barr will put this on his side of the ledger, the rule of law at the Justice Department at least held. And by looking into it and by disproving it, this account actually lines up pretty neatly with what he did and said publicly when he came out still as Attorney General, gave an interview and said there's nothing there. We've looked into it. There's nothing to my knowledge that would change. That's what prompted this exchange. That's what prompted this blow up. And Barr did look into it. He did that favor or that part of his job. But the fact that it ended in nothing and he ended up leaving even before the Justice Department, even before January 6th, I think points the way. We call it image rehabilitation or setting the record right for historical purposes. However you want to square it, at that moment, Bill Barr did his job as the Attorney General.
That's true. As the democracy was under assault, he did step forward. And as we just heard him very concisely explained the math and the paper ballots and how there's no, ghost in the machine somewhere that's fixing the election. So, Sarah, as you said, you worked at the DOJ under Attorney General Jeff Sessions. So do you have a sense of what was going on behind the scenes at the Justice Department while Attorney General Barr was investigating Trump's allegations of voter fraud, as he was directly requested to do?
Well, sure. I mean, the folks at the Department of Justice knew what the president wanted. They also knew their jobs, and they put love of country above loyalty to the president, as they're supposed to do. And you see the results. I think it's interesting whether it's appropriate, how we judge historically, looking back on what happened over the 4 years of the Trump presidency. So many times, I think people did favors for Donald Trump, did the things he wanted so that they could have the political capital with both the president and his followers to then say in those big moments, there's nothing here. What you see with Bill Barr is the most fascinating to me. He built so much credibility with Trump's followers. Then when he comes out and says the election was not stolen, Joe Biden is the legitimate president, what happens? The president turns against him, and his followers don't then find Bill Barr credible anymore. As in, you're only credible if you agree with the president all the time, which means there is no such thing as credibility outside of being Donald Trump yourself.
That's an excellent analysis, Sarah. There's a word for political movements that operate like that. It just doesn't occur to me right now. But, Rick, more seriously, look, Bill Barr, Liz Cheney, Mike Pence now. It does seem that in those days after the election, when President Trump began this effort to overturn the will of the people, it almost as if there's two parties in America, really, and they aren't Democrat and Republican. There's Team Democracy, and Bill Barr and Liz Cheney and Mike Pence are on it, and Team Overturn the Election. Is that a fair way of looking at one way of where we are politically right now, even now all these months after the election?
That's the choice that Donald Trump has brought for the country and specifically for his Republican Party. He was out over the weekend again campaigning for a primary opponent against one of the Republican members of the House who voted to impeach him. He'll be out again next weekend. In between, he'll be down in Texas touting the border wall. He is out and about and very active politically. And I think we're just beginning to see new revelations through the excellent reporting of our colleague Jonathan Karl, as well as many other books. The January 6th Commission, which is going to come in line later this week in all likelihood in the House. There is going to be an increasing reckoning of those final tumultuous, chaotic, and very scary days of the Trump administration. And former President Trump has made clear what side he's on. It is his own side, as Sarah referenced. And that is forcing a decision and a reckoning that continues to this day inside the Republican Party. You can be on the side of Trump or you can be on the side of truth. You can't be both.
And it was a close-run thing in those days. Sarah, so now in response to those claims of election fraud, we've seen Republicans across the country pushing voting laws that will restrict access to the ballot for certain people in the state legislatures, once again, largely because of Trump's claims. There isn't evidence anywhere in the country of widespread voter fraud, not just in 2020, but before, because we know that the Department of Justice under President President Trump and a presidential commission and Republican legislators across the country and politicians and academics and think tanks have looked and they can't find any. So do you think this undermines what Bill Barr is saying, the effort to pass these laws, solutions looking for a problem that isn't there?
So do you remember back right after the election when there was just the initial talk that it had been fraudulent and they were looking to certify the House members who had been elected? Chip Roy brought up a bill to the House floor. He's a member from Texas. And his point was, if the election was fraudulent when it comes to Donald Trump, then we can't certify the House members because they were elected in the exact same election. Nobody voted for Chip Roy's bill on the Republican side because, of course, they've never actually believed that the election was fraudulent. They thought their own elections were just fine. And so when you look at these bills, look, some of what they're actually trying to do are longstanding Republican, conservative voter issues, voter ID, more in-person versus mail ballots. All of those things would be fine. The problem is that the difference is the motivation this time is so clearly and inextricably linked to what Donald Trump has claimed about the election, which undermines our system of self-government, which, again, you heard Donald Trump at his rally on Saturday basically saying that people shouldn't vote in 2022 or maybe even 2024 because the election is rigged. That is the end of our system of government. It's the end of the American experiment, one that we've been inheriting for 200 plus years at this point.
And all around the world, and you hear people, they complain about the United States, but they have seen our democracy as one of its glories that can go from George Bush to Barack Obama to Donald Trump. That is the voice of the people, and to trash it is a national security issue in addition to everything else. Well, Rick Klein and Sarah Isgur-Flores, thanks very much for that.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.